Today we're going to have a very, very exciting, impactful, in-depth conversation about family and future and generational mental well-being. This conversation I felt was very important because, listen, we are living in a different time, y'all. There are a lot of young kids who are going to see this video that we're recording, who are going to be asking questions, who are learning themselves, who are going through a transitional period in their lives. And we're going to get into it. I went through a very, very drastic transition. But the purpose of this conversation is to be given the tools, to be given the knowledge of how do we navigate this journey? How do we navigate this thing called life for parents and students? I'm a proud alumni, as you can see, from Pilgrim School. Yes, that's right. We have the head of school of Pilgrim School, my dear Miss Kong, who's present and a big supporter of me, has been supporting me since I was at Pilgrim. So it's a very full circle moment, and it's a blessing to have you. So thank you, Miss Kong. So without further ado, I'm going to be moderating a conversation with two very, very special people. First, we have Dr. Bianca Busch. Dr. Bianca Busch is a dedicated psychiatrist. Well, come on. Welcome. Dr. Bianca Busch is a dedicated psychiatrist committed to providing compassionate and individualized patient care, focusing on supporting college students, young adults, and families where the student is the primary patient. Dr. Busch believes in the importance of whole person care, personalized treatment, plans tailored to each individual's unique journey. Thank you, Dr. Busch. And you know, a lot of the times we have these conversations, but you never get the perspective of the parent, right? Or maybe you might hear the perspective of the parent, but never from the son. So today you're gonna get both with a psychiatrist present. So you might see a real life therapy session. Exactly. This woman needs no introduction. She is Mama Walk Good. She is mommy to me. She is Sherylleeralph to y'all. She is the best teacher at Abbott Elementary. Yes. She is Moesha's mama, Moesha. She is Lauryn Hill's mama in Sister Act 2. Really, she's everybody's mama, right? But most importantly, she's my mommy. She's my mommy. So without further ado, the head diva in charge, Miss Sherylleeralph. What up, mommy? Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I really appreciate y'all taking the time. Dr. Bianca came all the way from Dallas to be here with us. So thank you. Thank you for making the trip. Like I mentioned earlier, today is World Meditation Day. So I would like for us to start with a brief meditation. Dr. Bianca, would you like to guide us in a brief meditation?
Okay, so what we're going to do is get comfortable, and I'm going to have us go to a place where we feel safe, where we feel loved, where we feel cared for, and we're going to get there by engaging all 5 senses. So close your eyes if that feels comfortable. If not, that's okay. But just relax, sit in your chair, maybe your feet are flat. All right, and I want you to get that place in your mind, a place where you feel safe, loved, cared for. What do you see in that place? Do you see someone familiar? Maybe you're alone. What you're seeing is making you feel good. What do you hear in that place? Is it quiet? Do you hear music playing? What do you hear? And you're in that place where you feel safe, loved. What do you feel? Is there anything below your feet? Maybe you're sitting, maybe you're lying down. But it feels just right wherever you are. What do you smell? For some, you might be at the beach and you smell the salty ocean air. For others, you might be at grandma's house and you smell home-cooked foods. What do you smell? And finally, what do you taste? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe you've just had some food. But whatever it is, it's reminding you that you're safe. It's helping you to feel calm. And so we have engaged our senses. It's taken us to this place where we feel so good, so safe, and so loved. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the space. And this is something that I do with my patients anytime, and I love it because you can do it anywhere. You don't have to have a tool. You just need yourself in your mind, and you can immediately be transported to another place. So, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Busch. Mommy, where did that take you?
At first, you know me, I'm always thinking. And it took me right to the fact that you said you don't have to have a tool, but your mind is an incredible tool. So very often, sometimes you get into these situations where you start to feel uncomfortable. If you do this, that sort of meditation enough, if you make it a part of mindful meditation, no matter what situation you might get in that becomes uncomfortable, you go back to where's my safe place? And your safe place is what unlocks your ability to think your way out, live your way out, free your way out. It will allow you to move forward because you've given yourself your safe place. That's amazing. I like that.
I love it. Isn't she just a great speaker? She's so amazing.
That's because my father was great. You know, my father had a great voice. He was a great speaker. He had so many students. Oh my God, he loved his students. He was strict, but his students loved him, and he loved them back. And he was just so full of wisdom, and he was always just putting it out there. And I would just sit there and listen.
Well, I think that's a great segue into this conversation. The idea of listening, right? I think a lot of the time it's easy to ignore those voices in our heads, the intuition in our minds that's telling us to do something, that's telling us not to do something, the ability to make a choice, right? My mother, growing up, she would always tell me, Etienne, choices. It's all about choices.
Life is about choices. Be careful of the choices you make. Yes.
I had some good choice. I made some good choices. I made some bad choices. But growing up, I had a very hard time identifying that voice in my head. It was hard to sometimes make those choices. Can you speak a little bit to that, Dr. Bianca, about that intuitive voice and for young kids and how difficult that might be for them to make a specific choice?
That's a good point. So, you know, even little kids have the ability to know what they like and what they don't like. And it can be our job as parents to listen to what they're telling us. And of course, we're gonna make sure that we're keeping them safe. That's our job, right, as parents, is to keep the kids safe and help them to make good decisions, but we can really encourage them by, when they are making good decisions, saying, hey, that was a great decision. Or if they have opinions about something, saying, yeah, you like that thing? That's great, right? One thing that I see with parents where they may either undermine the confidence or that intuition for kids, little kids, it's like, oh, are you sure you really like that? You don't really like that. I mean, even a patient that I had this week, the child is 10, and mom is like, well, I still really want to pick out her clothes. It's time for her to pick out her clothes herself, right? She's building her own identity, her own personality. And so it can be a balance, right? We've got to keep them safe, but we also have to encourage them to have their own ideas and opinions and say, yeah, you've got it, which I'm sure you did for Etienne. Yes.
I did the best I could, but
Yes.
I'm always impacted by a character that I played in Sister Act 2, where the mother was so dead set against her child pursuing her own dreams. And the reason the mother was so dead set against her child pursuing her dreams was because her mother's dreams didn't come true. So her mother was going to stop her child from even trying because it didn't happen for her. So a lot of parents get in that space of saying to their children, don't try that. It didn't work out for me, so it probably won't work out for you. And for me, as a parent, it was important for me to let my children know I lived my life, and I'm living my life, and I'm enjoying my life. And I hope that as you grow up, you're going to enjoy your life with the choices that you make. Parents have such incredible power with their children that they never use because somehow they have some rigid idea of what love is, some hard, fast rule about what it is to be a parent. When I will never forget, my daughter was probably about your age, and my daughter was tap dancing on my last nerve. Woo.
I wish Coco was here right now.
But I remember I was looking at her, and my brain was saying, you could stop this right now, you really could. But something clicked in my head. I walked over to her and I gave her the biggest hug possible. I said, I love you so much, but I really don't like you right now. But I love you. I love you. And when I flipped the switch, for me, as a parent, it made all the difference. And instead of me going out of control, I became absolutely in control of the situations. Yeah. So sometimes parents have to figure out how to flip their own internal switch to help their children better.
Dr. Bianca, I think you could speak to that as well. Like, what are some actual tools? And I love how my mother brought how she was able to bring it in and find that control. I know there are some clients you might have where the parent can't find that control, right? What are some tools in which parents can use to combat those moments of frustration with their child when their child is getting on their last nerve, but a healthily a way they could have those tools to use?
So I think what you did is so important. You regulated yourself before you went to her, and I think that's oftentimes what things can go wrong when we as parents cannot regulate ourselves and we end up matching our children where they are. If you have a toddler and your toddler is tantruming and you also tantrum because they're tantruming, you are the first person that they look to figure out how to regulate their emotions. So if you can take a step back and take a breath break maybe you need to go to your room for a few minutes and breathe, and then come back and say, okay, I recognize that you might need something, and you're working with your toddler or your teenager, either or. But it's really about you regulating yourself to be able to go back and then meet their needs. And that is one of the most important things, for sure, with parents and kids, is you've got to regulate yourself to show them how to regulate themselves, and then you're going to make good decisions as a parent and like not yell at your kids and go crazy, go off on your kids.
Because yelling really doesn't serve much of anything, and yelling.
She knows that firsthand.
Yeah, it doesn't solve anything. And for me, it's like if you're yelling, you're now out of control. Yes. And too many times we get in what are supposed to be problem solving, and we are compounding the problem by yelling, yes, by being out of control. And the safe place, the way she started this, go to your safe place. That is a powerful tool for anything. Because before you can fix anything for anybody else, you got to fix it for yourself. Absolutely. You can't do anything for anybody if you can't do it for yourself. So when they talk about tools and children will literally become their parents. They will literally become their parents. So parents have this huge responsibility. If you're sad and depressed, your child will carry sadness and depression. If you are happy, they'll usually be happy unless something else is going on within their psyche. And if you are aware enough, you'll be parent enough to notice these things. But these are all things that you learn in life. You have to learn these tools in order to be a greater, better parent for your child. And sometimes you'll look back at them when they're 30-something and say, what the hell, really? Wow.
Well, thank you, Mommy. I want to just bring it back. Well, first of all, parents, are y'all getting this? Is this resonating with you? Good. That's why we're here. I know we jumped right into it, but Dr. Bianca, I would love for us to dive into the beginning. What brought you to this practice? You know, you could have specialized in so many avenues within your psychiatrist practice, but why specifically young adults, young kids who are transitioning, and children specifically?
You know, I have a heart for families. I've been babysitting since I probably was 12. I love kids. I love them.
How much did you get an hour?
You know, I had my little flyers, babysitting by Bianca, and I think $10 an hour.
Oh my God, I only got 50 cents.
Maybe it was only 5 or 7, maybe 10, 50 cents.
Inflation.
So I've always loved children, and I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. I always wanted to go to medical school, become a pediatrician. Got there, and I was like, you know, this isn't really my jam, giving shots all day, even though it's really the nurses that do that. But what I loved was talking to people, hearing their stories, understanding where they've come from. And then with families, you know, I just have compassion for parents. Sometimes people say, oh, if things are wrong with the child, it's totally the parent's fault. Well, parents have their own story. And so I really love working with families to see, okay, what's the parent's story? What are they bringing to this parenting relationship? How can we make some shifts in the interest of the child while having compassion for their experience? So that's really how I came to specifically child and adolescent psychiatry. I love science, so I get to take care of the whole body, think about how all of the systems are working together, but then I get to think about politics. I get to think about economics and how that's impacting the household. It really is a joy. If you can't tell, I'm delighted to do the work that I do. I love it.
And Mama, you have a very special connection to children. I mean, aside from being my mother, but what was the, you told me you used to be an agent for children. Yeah. What about being a parent has made you a better lover for children? Because, like I told everybody here just now, you are everybody's mother. Yes. What do you think makes you a great mom?
I love people. Same thing here. I really like people, even when they get on my nerves. I really like people. I like them. I like their differences. I like the sameness. I like, I don't know. I like humanity. And so for me, when I was little, I always knew I was going to be a mother. I knew if I wasn't going to be famous, I knew I was going to be somebody's mother. I was going to have...
You got both.
I was going to have children, and when I had my children, it was like, I'm going to be the best mother I can be. And I had a wonderful mother. I had a mother who loved me. Oh my gosh. And I had a father who loved me. And so that's what I remember most about my parents was the love. Were they perfect? No. But they were always improving, I remember one time my parents had a big argument. And we were young, because we were still in Connecticut, so we were young. And they called their good friend to come and sit with us. And their good friend, they were all friends until they died, and he just sat there, and he sat on the floor, and he just sat with us, and he said, sometimes parents, they have arguments, and it has nothing to do with you. It is not you, it's them, because sometimes parents get crazy. But then they're going to come back, and everything will be all right. I remember that, and it's like I remember when I was going through, the divorce and everything, I kept telling Etienne and Coco, this is
has nothing to do with you.
Right.
I'll never forget that. And you actually, I want to talk about this specifically. There might be some parents here who come from divorced households. There might be children that come from divorced households. Dr. Bianca, how does that affect young kids as, they're growing and experiencing life as we know it?
Well, I love that you got to hear your parents argue. I think that's actually really important for kids to see how parents, as long as it's not getting super toxic, right. It was wonderful that they had another adult to sit and be with you, yes. But it's important for kids to see how you resolve conflict. It's not super healthy for kids to see, oh, mom and dad never argue, they never have conflict, because then they don't know how to solve conflict. Right. So I think that's really important. The other thing that's really important, statistically we know that parents who are not working well together and stay together for the sake of the children is actually not good. It's actually not good. We know that in the literature. And so when I'm working with families where they're considering separation, considering divorce, that kind of thing, I'd say that actually might be a good and healthy thing for the family. And we're going to work with the kids. We're going to work with you guys to make it through this transition. But it can actually be a very good thing for families if parents aren't getting along well and they need to go on their separate ways.
Even though no matter what or how we separate families, your children will never be the same. They will never be the same.
I was not the same.
No. They will carry the disconnect with them. And I always would say to other parents separating, do not talk about the other parent in front of the child. And that is very hard for people when they're hurt. They say terrible things about the mother. They say terrible things about the father. And they say it to the child for them to hear, to make them feel like they have to take a side or make some decisions about who they like more or less. And it's wrong.
And I just also want to add that that's half of the child. So if you're saying mom is bad, that's half of me
Is
is bad. So you're sending some messages there when you're doing that. Now, it's harmful to the relationship with the other parent, but it also can be harmful to the sense of self.
That's right. Yeah. So I would always say, try not to say anything about the parent to your children. That is not their business. You all separating, that is one thing. But try not to deprive them of a relationship with their parent, because that is their family. You might not like them, but that is their family. And you never know how down the line family will need family. But then you go around trying to sever these relationships. Try to be the best person you possibly can be. Hide the knives. Hide the scissors. Hide it.
But
For the protection of your children.
I think it's interesting just hearing you say that, because I do remember you always were encouraging to do things with Dad. You know, I remember, you know, my father was very much in my life, still is. But I remember around like 13, 14 years old, you know, I always wanted to hang out with Mom. I wanted to be with Mom a little bit more, just because, you know, I was at that age where I was trying to, you know, not rely too much on my dad, but then the divorce was very difficult for me to really comprehend. And I remember being very, I would say, confused a little bit, because I was like, well, why isn't Mom and Dad together? Mom is now dating. This is the new guy that could be my stepdad. I like him. He's not my real dad, you know. And I remember being just like a little bit confused, you know, and that frustrated me when I was young. And I think that showed a lot in school. You know, I wasn't performing my best because I was just focused on so many different things at home, with my parents not being together and going to school with so many other kids who had their parents. And there wasn't really like a community where kids were just talking about, yeah, my parents are divorced too, you know? And I remember feeling isolated during that time. But still, while it was hard for me to understand that, I spent a lot of time with them, even sometimes when I didn't want to spend time with them. I think the time that I spent was invaluable, you know, like going to hang out with my father on the weekends, you know, running, you know, doing certain activities, going to plays with you, you know. I think that really shaped me as an artist, as an athlete, and I think those memories are memories that I can never forget, you know. And I think when you're young, you don't think that it even matters. But, you know, as you get older, I mean, here I am speaking as a 32-year-old. I still feel like I'm 13 sometimes. You know, I'm very thankful that I had those moments. So, you know, to the parents who, you know, are having a difficult time identifying those moments to have those tough conversations or to spend that time, just hang on in there, because your child will never forget. But I also want to bring this back to why this forum is even happening today. Obviously, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, but most importantly, there was this conversation you and I had, Mommy, last month or a few weeks ago, and Mommy had asked me, Etienne, have I traumatized you? I'm like, Mommy, you did not traumatize me. Maybe just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. No, in all seriousness, though, I remember sitting in your room, and we talked about this in depth, and we were going back and forth, just identifying the root cause of my own mental health challenges. For those of you that don't know, 11 years ago, I was placed on a 5150. A 5150 is a code. If the hospitals, if they feel as if though you are going to cause harm to yourself or somebody else due to your mental instability, they place you on a 5150 and you get sent to the psych ward for 72 hours on a psychiatric hold. This was due to a DUI that I had. I drove my car into a tree. I had microscopic brain hemorrhaging on my brain, which I was bleeding on my brain due to the impact of the DUI. And I was very much a different person. I was not the person you see here today. I had completely lost my mind, literally, talking to myself. High sense of paranoia. I was showing signs of schizophrenia. I was in the psych ward for a whole 72 hours. But I will tell you one thing. The difference between me and everybody else that I was in the psych ward with was that I had the support of my family. My mother, my dad, my uncle, my stepdad flew all the way from Philly just to make sure that I was well taken care of under the circumstances. Everybody in the psych ward didn't have that support. I was treated horribly in the psych ward. I was given medication that I wasn't supposed to be given. They gave me lithium, which is supposed to stabilize your behavior. I had an allergic reaction, and my body was convulsing. I was having a seizure. And as God would have it, at that very moment when I was having this allergic reaction, my family came through the doors, And so this conversation is to make sure that I knock on wood, I pray to God nobody has to go through what I went through. But I want us to be equipped for anything that would ever happen to any of us. I want us to be equipped with the knowledge and the tools and the support to actually offer help and guidance to anyone that might be going through a difficult time mentally. And so this conversation is a safe space, but I want us to leave with some information with a licensed professional so that we are safe, and that we have the knowledge. And
because, there was nothing safe about what you were going through. First of all, he's in college, and he's drinking, and whatever else he was doing, making some very bad choices. Took the car that we shipped across country to him.
PTSD, y'all, PTSD.
Drinking, ran it into a tree.
Mind
went up the tree.
And I'm 21 years old, by the way. I just want to
turns over, slides down the hill. He hits his head and is now hanging upside down in the car for almost 20 minutes before the police get there to cut him out. He's in a tuxedo because he had gone to an event, correct? He's in a tuxedo. Cut him out. He has a joint in the in the glove compartment. They take him down to, what's that hospital?
University of Pennsylvania.
University of Pennsylvania Hospital, where, did you have your health card that you give them?
I had it.
They give the health card. The health card says, Pennsylvania Senate. Pennsylvania Senate. Why? Because my husband's a senator. Okay? He's in a tuxedo, Pennsylvania Senate. Nobody figures out. It's Friday night, black boy. Are you following me? So everything about him that is supposed to set him apart is negated because it's Friday night and he's black in Philadelphia with a head the size of a basketball because he hit his head. Now, it was a very round basketball. I was like, my God, he must have been, you know, it's like boom, 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 boom. Okay? I'm not exaggerating. I'm just telling you the truth. By the time we get to Etienne, Etienne's got a nasty attitude. And I'm saying to them, something's wrong. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, do you not see his demeanor? They're like, what? I said, I'm sorry, that's my son. And my son, first of all, he doesn't talk to me that way. Wow. Second of all, he's not cursing at us. But the nasty behavior from this black child was okay. They couldn't get to me saying, something's wrong. They let him go. We get him back here, and it's Dr. Keith Black in Cedars-Sinai. And Dr. Black says, you know what? Yeah. We got to check out his head.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially if you say something's really wrong here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to fill in some blanks. We went to the ER. When we went to the ER, the doctors were trying to understand why I was acting psychotic, why I was being psychotic, and the doctor suggested my mom send me to the psych ward involuntarily. And so there was where they had to do the testing, and so when I spent that 72 hours in the psych ward, they then made the decision to release me. Now, I will let you know, when we had that meeting with the social worker on the last day, you know, it was, I'll never forget, it was this gentleman, older gentleman. He looked like, he was very pale, and he had this briefcase, and we sat down, and we're like in this interrogation room, and he basically just asked me, so why are you here? And I remember just sharing with him, like, listen, I see everyone in this space not getting the care that they deserve, and I need y'all to understand that I am a sophomore in college, and I'm just trying to graduate. And at this time, I've come to like my senses a little bit, still not all the way there,
Right.
but I was not only scared, but I was also frustrated at the fact that nobody was really listening to me. At the beginning of this conversation, we talked about listening. And it was very difficult for me to acknowledge the fact that nobody was going to listen to me if my parents, my family wasn't there to advocate for me. And what helped the situation was I said, listen, I just want to make my parents proud. And he took off his glasses, and he was like, wow. It was like he'd never heard any of the patients say that before. I just want to make my parents proud because I want to graduate. And by the grace of God, I did. I got my diploma from Drexel University, and I finished. Now, I don't want to make a long story longer, but 11 months after, unfortunately, I had another incident.
Bad choices.
The doctor told me, don't smoke, don't drink, or you're going to damage your brain even more. And I think when you're young, you think you're invincible.
That's right.
You think, it's not going to happen to me. I've been through the worst of it. It won't happen again. Wrong. I go out after having a leave of absence from school, go out with some friends, start drinking, start smoking. Next thing I know, I wake up, I'm in the hospital. The same hospital that I was at 11 months prior because of the DUI. And I wake up, I'm kind of in and out of consciousness, and I ask the doctor, what the frick happened? And the doctor tells me, you've been shot. And I'm like, wait, hold on. I've been shot. So my mind immediately goes to, like, did the bar that I was at get shot up? Like, what happened? Because I can't remember anything. The last thing I remember is me being at the bar. And they told me that I had been shot in my leg, twice in my leg, and I had a big gash above my eyebrow, and that my eyes were black. Later found out that I had a grazed bullet above my eyebrow, and I had been shot at 5 times, hit 3 times, and I was in a place that I shouldn't have been. And later found out that I was shot by a father and a son in the wrong part of town. Luckily, they found them. They were charged. I don't know where they are. They're probably still in jail. But I say all that to say, praise God, I'm here. Yes. There has been an immense guilt that I have felt over these years because of the trauma I put on my mom.
Oh, don't feel like that, Etienne.
I
Come
know,
on.
Mom. That's what I'm feeling, though. It's what I'm feeling. And, you know, yes, we're here able to celebrate all of this, but it could very well be not the case. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. And I know I've made some difficult, dumb choices. But Mom, I can't tell you enough. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you, man.
I love you too. I love you too. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to cry. I'm walking good.
Oh, you got it. You got it.
But
But-
I would say this is the role of parents,
Yes.
right? We have to let them make their choices.
That's right.
They might be bad choices, but we're here,
That's it.
right? But Mom is here, right? And so that's just the role. And I can only imagine how scary it must have been for you and all of
No, you
those
can't.
times. Yes.
Oh, no, you can't. But parents must advocate
Yes.
for their children. Parents must find the strength to be there for their children, to find a way to embrace your children. Because there are some children who are languishing because they have no support. And I would say, if you are languishing because you have no support, find the support. Find a place to be. We were talking about community earlier. Mm-hmm. It used to be in church. Church doesn't work that way so much anymore. Mm-hmm. You have to find a place that is welcoming, like the place and space that you've created here, knowing that it is a safe place and your mental wellness, your health matters. That is invaluable in this time because the generations need new places. Yes. It's new safe places.
Yes.
Turn your pain into a purpose, baby. I love it.
Pain into purpose. Yes. Real quick before we open it to, questions for the audience from the audience, I really want to continue off of, the experience I just shared with you. There was something interesting that happened through that 11-month period, And we started seeing doctors. We saw psychiatrists. Thank God we were able to have the resources and see the doctors that we were able to see. because it could have been a very different situation. It could have been a very different situation. And through this experience, we learned that I had ADD. ADD was something that we always thought I had, but it was never fully diagnosed. Growing up, it was very hard for me to focus. But because of this situation that happened with my brain, we were able to identify more specifically my mental situation and my mental state. And I remember we were talking about this, Mom. I said, I asked, why didn't we address this sooner? And Mommy said something very interesting that has stuck with me. And you said, well, had I known everything we know now about mental wellness and the tools and the guidance that I wish I had then, we would have done things a lot differently. The interesting about that, we talk about the root cause. You know, why was I smoking and drinking? Why was I making these poor choices? And Dr. Busch, we talked about this on our IG Live. We talk about coping mechanisms. My coping mechanism was drugs and alcohol. You know, it was my safe place at that time. I was running away from issues that I was having a real hard time dealing with. In college, being in an environment where everybody's smoking, everybody's drinking, I think I'm just doing what everybody else is doing and I'm not going to be affected as much, not realizing that I'm harming myself without acknowledging the pain that I'm experiencing. And I'll be honest, guys, it took me yoga and meditation and some serious reflection to identify what was the root cause. Because I was doing it a lot more during the time when I had the DUI, before I had the DUI. And I remembered my grandfather was very ill and passed away due to prostate cancer. And I realized I wasn't able to grieve in a healthily way. I wasn't able to face the pain, acknowledge the pain of losing someone who was very close to me. And so I went to smoking and drinking. And then a few months after, I had the DUI. A year later, I had gotten shot, but I wasn't able to fully acknowledge that pain until I told myself, cold turkey, all right, Etienne, no smoking and drinking. I started to develop this phobia, you know, and this is why Walk Good exists, right? Because I do not want another young man, another young woman to have to go through what I went through because they didn't develop the right coping mechanisms, right? That's why I'm a yoga instructor, so that's why I encourage everyone to breathe, because these are the basic necessities, right? When we come into this world, what's the first thing that we have? Our breath. What is the last thing we have when we leave this world? Our breath. So being able to control our breath, it's the one thing that is constant in our life. So the earlier we learn these things, the better off we are.
Absolutely.
And so I would love to hear from you, Dr. Busch. What are some ways parents can teach their children healthy coping mechanisms so that they can make smarter decisions?
That's a good question. And I want to go back just a second to talk about the things that have happened for you. So you were talking about coping with grief. But the other thing that was happening probably for you is having ADHD or ADD means that you have a hard time with the executive function portion of your brain, the frontal lobe, the portion that controls your brain.
Which was damaged, by the way.
Which was damaged even more, right? And so that just decreases your ability to make good, sound decisions on top of having that grief. So an interesting thing that we know about ADHD, and if we treat it, that children who become adults, they're less likely to abuse substances because they can make different decisions. So sometimes people will say, oh, we're not going to treat ADHD with a stimulant, which is potentially addictive because this person might be prone to addiction. But actually, if we treat it, even with the stimulant, they have a lower chance of becoming addicted in the future. So I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of the times we wonder, should we treat ADHD, should we not? And it doesn't always have to be medication, right? There's a lot of different things that we can do. So I just wanted to say that. And then what do we do to teach our children to cope? Oh, so many things. I love that you started with breath. You can do that with little kids. I do it with my 3-year-old. He gets really frustrated and he's just all in his feelings and crying. And I'm like, okay, Kendrick, let's take a breath. Okay, and then we're going to talk about it. So you can teach them to breathe. They're looking at you and seeing what happens to you when you get angry and you get upset, right? So if you can take a breath, talk it out. Mommy's really frustrated. If it's a teen, I'm really upset right now. We're going to take some time, that you're taking time away, that you're breathing, that you're moving your body. So I love that yoga. People of all ages can do yoga. People of all ages can walk. People of all ages can play. I love to play. I was blowing bubbles, my toddler. That's relaxation, that's therapy, and you can do that at any age, and it's accessible. So I like to really think about the things that we can do that don't involve going to a system or a place or having to pay. So breathing, walking, moving our bodies. We can use music as therapy, right? We can put on some music and we can dance or we can sing to it. So those are just a few things that you can do to teach your children to deal with big emotions when they're feeling frustrated or they're feeling sad. I have so many more, but I'll leave you with those.
Give it up for this.